G'day, I'm Tim Thompson. Would you believe some idiot gave me an excavator to play with and it's electric? I can't wait for this review. Let's get into it. This week I get to violate this. It's the UHI E12 all-electric 1.2 tonne excavator. Now I've got to admit I'm a bit excited about this week's review, not just because the machine's shiny and red either. I've got a mountain of tasks that have been piling up around the place that I reckon this will be perfect for because it's got a wide range of attachments. They've supplied it with an earth auger, two size excavator buckets, one ideal for trenching, one ideal for ordinary digging, a ripping tine, which is going to come in really handy with stumps, and two sizes of mud bucket for smoothing out and transferring loads. Okay, so let's talk about the machine itself. It's 3 foot wide and 4 foot long, 900 by 1200. This means that the E12 can easily turn into a 12-foot gateway, and it weighs about 1100 kilos. It's got a maximum downforce on its mast of 900 kilos, and its largest mud bucket is rated to 120 kilos, although I've taken it way beyond that in this week's trial. There are no foot controls on this machine at all. Everything is done by hand. You've got two levers here for forward and reverse and turning the machine. You've got a central lever here for lowering the lockout blade. You've got an accessory lever here for things like the auger that drive in both directions. Then you've got two levers here that operate all of your burn functions such as crowd and reach, and they also operate the yaw of the machine on the tracks. Now, being a fully electric machine, this does have a charging point at the rear, and it's got a 240 volt 10 amp charger that plugs straight in to charge it up. It takes about 10 hours to charge the battery, and you'll get, according to the manufacturer, about 6 hours of battery life. The good news about the charging setup is it's just a 10 amp wall switch that's required, so any 240 volt 10 amp switch is perfect to plug your charger into, meaning you don't have to modify your sheds too much to have one of these things. I think this is going to be perfect for small landholders and hobbyists. There's going to be a couple of things that restrict its market at this stage. The first is the absence of any lockouts, the absence of a reversing signal, and the fact that you can't get a constant 8 hours use out of the machine. Having lived now with this machine for a week or so and tried it out, I found it to be very capable, and I think the biggest selling point for small landholders and hobbyists is the lack of an engine to maintain. Apart from the easily replaceable sealed battery unit, there's nothing really to maintain. All you have to do is grease it every 8 hours or so, and every 1,000 hours, change the hydraulic fluid. For commercial use, I think there's a few features that are lacking that will probably stand in the way of its wide adoption, and that is there are no lockout bars, so you can literally turn the machine on, get off, and it's still operable. So I think that's going to limit commercial application at this stage. Once you're used to it, the controls and startup procedure are quite logical and straightforward. There's a bottom switch here which is the battery lockout. You need to place this to the on position, not just to use the machine, but to charge the battery. If it's turned to the off position, the battery and machine are physically disconnected. You can't even charge it. Moving up from the lockout button, you've got an ignition control switch. If you turn this to the right and wait for about 10 seconds, you'll hear a click in the battery controller. That means that it's charged up and ready to go. From there, you've got your accelerator, if you like, which is your hydraulic pump speed controller. And if you turn this switch up, you'll start to hear the pump operating at a faster and faster speed, which gives you more power, but also more speed to deal with on the controls. The controls are quite easy to use once you get used to them, and you do have quite a deal of control over the speed at which the machine reacts to them. For those of you who like more information and are more gadget minded, I've linked the full specs page below in the description of this video for you. Now let's get on and talk about how it performed out in the paddock. I had a range of tasks that I had for this little thing to do. The first task that I had was flattening out some pads on some gates that I'd installed that were really annoying and were only operating in one direction. A gate that only operates in one direction is about as annoying as the boy band. So the larger digging bucket came installed on the machine, so I literally just had to jump on it, turn the switches on, and I was away. Now, not having operated excavators very often, this was still a steep learning curve for me, and I was quite pleased at the speed at which the controls became familiar, and I was able to figure out how to do a reasonably flat job on the gateways. There'll be people who make comments, I'm sure. But I think the point of this is, even if you don't have experience on an excavator, this was a very easy and simple machine to get to know and to use. And after 20 minutes of mucking around, I've got a reasonably level pad on this side of the gate, and a gate that I've never been able to open in this direction before now swings fully open quite easily. The added benefit of this was that because there's no engine, there's virtually no noise, and you can hear everything going on around you, I believe making this a lot safer for your less experienced operator. When it came time to change implements, this was when the first of my frustrations with the pre-delivery on this machine became evident. There is a quick release that's supplied with the equipment, but it wasn't installed, which meant I had to spend about 3/4 of an hour installing the quick release and taking the old bucket off manually. I think a little bit more pre-delivery and the installation of this quick release would help. The quick release is not hydraulic, it operates off this screw at the top, so we'll call it more of a medium release. But once installed, it was very easy to use and you can change implements quite rapidly. While we're on the subject of pre-delivery, the other frustration I found was with the hydraulic hoses for the earth auger. They didn't come with quick releases, so every time you attach and detach these hoses, you get hydraulic oil all over yourself. I'm also a little bit concerned about getting dirt in the hose attachments as you take it off and put it on in the paddock. I think for a couple of extra dollars, I'd love to see some quick release hydraulic fittings present on an implement that's designed to be taken off and put on a regular basis. Apart from my small frustration about the quick releases on the hydraulic hoses, the earth auger was one of my favourite implements. This earth auger dug half a dozen holes in heavy clay soil in hot weather in a matter of minutes. Not only that, but it took care of a tree root that would normally stop me in my tracks for a good 10 to 15 minutes or more. Please don't take it away, UHI. The earth auger is where most of the pre-delivery issues seem to raise their head. So you should be able to take the earth auger off quite easily by slipping this bolt out and then dropping it off the motor to reduce the load on your arms. But when I came to put the earth auger on, I found that the holes in the drive shaft didn't match the holes in the earth auger, and they'd been drilled a little bit crookedly, which meant the bolt wouldn't go through the hole. So I had to do some filing to make the product work, and this is once again where I found that a lack of pre-delivery didn't pick up on some issues that probably shouldn't have even come to light in this review. But we got there in the end, and it's a fantastic piece of gear. An absolute must-have if you get one of these machines is this ripping tine. Not only does it look fantastic, but my goodness, it makes short work out of the biggest of stumps, and it multiplies the force of this machine incredibly through this tiny point. And the ability to not only drop down and pull, but also lift at the same time means that nothing will stand in its way. Just be careful where you dig. This thing will go through anything. Now, of course, a mud bucket is a really important tool on any excavator, and I was able to use this to clean up where I'd pulled out stumps and clean up around the gateways before grading. Having a couple of good sized mud buckets is essential if you're going to get one of these tools, and I certainly put them to good use. So summing it up, the little UHI E12, would I get one? Absolutely, sign me up. I've been able to accomplish more work in this week that I've been putting off for years than I thought possible, and I've done it on only a couple of charges, despite the fact that it had a 50% charge cutout fitted to it. I think the advantage for small landholders is obvious with going for the electric. Even though it's a couple of $1,000s price premium over the diesel variant, I think the cost savings in servicing and the knowledge that you can just put it away in the shed for a month or two, get back on it, turn the key and start it up is invaluable. So I think this is going to find a home with a lot of people with small land holdings or very infrequent use, but still a need for a fully functional hardworking and quite capable excavator. Don't forget guys, if you like videos like this, hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and there's plenty more content on timthompson.ag. And if you like shiny red things, click the link below and go and see the range at UHI.